All right, we're in session 4 of Making Relationships Stick, and the big idea is quality of your life. The quality of your life is all about the quality of your relationships. You can learn how to have good relationships, life will be good. Get along with those kids, get along with your wife, life will be good. If you can teach your people to get along with their wife, their kids, get along at church. You know what keeps churches? I've logged 2 million miles at American Airlines alone, being in churches, talking to them about how to do small groups and how to do Sunday school and how to teach and how to grow classes and so on. And you know what keeps most churches from growing? It's not that they can't figure out how to grow. It's because they can't figure out how to get along with each other. I remember being in a church one time, and one evening I spoke on doubling your class in 2 years or less, and the content of that is all about loving one another and loving out people outside in common, ordinary, pedestrian ways, and on, hospitality and so on. And I'm waxing eloquent about loving one another and so on. Next day I meet with the staff. One staff member says to another staff member, "You do not know how deeply I have hated you." Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. Ba-da-da-da-da. We've got to learn to love one another. And this series is a great series. So the big idea, the quality of your life is all about the quality of your relationships. And going to review back to session 1 this time. I'm going to do a little bit, want to do some review, but want to mix up the review. You remember we said people are often obnoxious, disappointing, irritating, rude, and hard to get along with. That's that classic marriage book, What Did You Expect? I believe it's called. And the basic gist of the book is we are sinners married to sinners. So just get ready for a sinner to irritate you and get ready to be impatient because you are a sinner married to a sinner. We are obnoxious, disappointing, irritating, rude, and hard to get along with. But in spite of that, there's grace. And people skills can be learned. But it's not about just trying really hard. I often put this slide up on the screen that says, so try really hard to be good. And I taunt people to remember that there's far more to Christian living than simply trying hard to be good. And as it relates to getting along with others, one of my classic verses, and this is my prayer, that your love may abound, not by trying really hard, that your love may abound in knowledge and depth of insight. We're transformed by the renewing of our mind, and we learn to be better lovers. We learn to have better relationships by having our knowledge, by learning more. All right, so the big idea of this session, that's the big idea overall. The big idea of this session, we're skipping all the review of the big idea of the sessions we've gone through before. I could tell them to you. Could you tell them to each other? In fact, you might want to just, if you're in a group, pause, or if you're by yourself, just pause. Can you remember the last 3 sessions? I can remember. You know why? Because I said them over and over again, and you get a memory in your head by repeating it. That's why we repeat it. But I'm not going to do it for you this time. You're going to have to do it yourself if you want to. All right, so here's this week's big idea. The key to great relationships is having a servant's heart. One of the fascinating things I've read about marriage is they did studies where they ask the man and the woman of household chores, how much of it do you think you do? And the total always comes up to about 120%. In other words, if they did the equal amount of household chores, he thinks he's doing about 60%. And she thinks she's doing about 60%. In other words, both of them think that they're doing more than is expected. In other words, what this research, what this science is showing us is, if you don't do more than is expected of you, you're getting behind. You got to do more than expected of you just to get to even, just to get 50-50, because you think that you're doing more than you are. The reason for this is, just to talk about me for a minute, I know of everything I do. Every time I emptied the trash, I know I emptied the trash. Every time I pick up my slippers, I know I picked up my slippers. Sometimes my dear wife will pick up my slippers and I never even know it. But I know when I do stuff. And so we got to do more than we think we should do just to stay even. And the key to great relationships is having a servant's heart. Would you say with me? The key to great relationships is having a servant's heart. A couple of books you might consider looking at. I'm listening to this first one right now. This actually sermon, I've kind of gotten caught up with myself, my preaching schedule. And so this message I'm giving you today is the next message I will be teaching. And so right now, in a few minutes, I'm going to drive. It's Wednesday night. I'm going to drive to Wednesday night prayer meeting. And on my way up, I'm going to listen to this part of this audio right now. Listen to part of it yesterday as I was taking a walk, the volunteer revolution. And one of the things it told me, by the way, I was just real encouragement to me, because I've taught on this subject a number of times. And truthfully, as I was getting in the preparation, I don't know if this ever happens to you, I was getting a little bit discouraged. Because I feel like I've told these people that they need to be servants, and some of them just will not serve. Some of them serve great, but then some of them just will not get with it. And I listened to how Bill Hybels was communicated this to him over and over and over to this little youth group that was a part of the launching of Willow Creek Church. And it wasn't until he said it, Dr. Bill Zekian was kind of preacher for them at that time, and said it over and over and again. It was just a good reminder to me. Sometimes we got to speak the truth over and over and over. This is why we review, because you just got to say it over. I write these things again. It is no trouble for me to write it, and it is a safeguard for you, Paul said. Anyway, there's a great book, and then a book I'm rereading. It's one of Chuck Swindoll's all-time best-selling books, Improving Your Serve. Classic, great book. I'd encourage you to read that. If you don't got time to read it, or if you'd like to, you've got some readers in your class, assign that reading to them or ask them if they'd be willing to read it. Another great book, The Cure for the Common Life by Max Lucado. In this book, he talks not so much about just imploring you to serve, but talking about how you can find the sweet spot of your gifting. Anyway, another great read. All right, so here's our text from Galatians. You, my brothers, were called to be free. And if you know the story of the book of Galatians, this is the theme of the whole book, that he's counteracting legalists who said you're going to please God by trying hard, that you got to get on the done plan. And Paul is saying, in essence, it's not the done plan. It's not the do plan, it's the done plan. That's what Christ has done for us, all right? And that's, he's made this whole case in the book of Galatians. But then toward the end of Galatians here, he turns a corner and he says, but don't use this concept of freedom to get you in trouble. You, my brothers, were called to be free, but don't use your freedom to indulge. I draw your attention to that word, indulge. The sinful nature, just by the way, I think the NIV uses the word sinful nature here. I think the word flesh is actually a better translation of that. But at any rate, the NIV uses sinful nature. Rather, serve